This is the market update. I'm your host, Bill Noble. What's going to happen to Bitcoin? Will it hold if stocks and bonds continue to go down? I think yes, but even if I'm wrong, I'm going to tell you some good levels to look at. Why is the market going down? I'll give it to you very simply in the event that you're working late or you don't have time. Jerome Powell stepped up to the microphone and simply and plainly said, I don't know what to do. I would have thought he would say, you know what? I need to let the bond market take care of it. That's true, it meaning inflation. But he stepped up to the microphone and said, we don't know what to do. He also ended the legacy market's fantasy about rate cuts next year. So the way I would rephrase everything is to say, Powell can't raise rates, right? Because he's already kind of blowing things up, and he's got to let the bond market do its thing, long-term interest rates, which we will cover, aka Thanos, the destroyer of everything. I will explain. But when you have the chairman of the Federal Reserve say, I don't know what to do, you have the right-wing political party fighting amongst itself, with that party also fighting the hard left. Okay. You're about to hand the Russians a huge geopolitical victory. The integrity of the currency is in question. And on top of that, they want to kill the biggest crypto influencer on YouTube. And we're going to talk about it. So if you add all this up, what do you get? Well, you get 1929, right? When the Fed doesn't know what to do, if Jerome Powell's not going to save everybody, if everyone's on their own, then everything has to be repriced, which is exactly what happened in 1929. Everybody's delusion ended. Now, this is Satoshi's vision, but what happens to Bitcoin and ETH if it gets caught in a sell everything wave? I will say this before we dive into the news. People probably looked at what happened in Legacy on September 21st, the day of this stream. They probably saw stuff, stocks, bonds down like 2-3%, which is big for that market. And they probably said, oh, I can't short it now. It's down too much. That's not true. Just keep in mind, the 1929 crash accelerated on September 22nd when somebody unexpectedly went bankrupt. In this case, it was the Federal Reserve going intellectually bankrupt. All right, let's welcome who's on the stream. We have Patriot Caveman. We have Arcanog, not feeling too good. Well, I'll make you feel better. FOMO Spain, welcome. Aiken, James. James Bond is here. Welcome. Welcome. I know Kim is here. Willimeter, I lost the chat earlier. Malik, definitely welcoming everybody to the stream, especially all those great people who joined way early for this, once again, market update late night. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's talk about the channel. Let's talk about a channel, shall we? After a failed bid to reclaim Namestake company, Ben Bitboy Armstrong asks fans for cash, and Armstrong has received a certain amount, okay, after a judge denied his emergency injunction to regain control. Okay, a few words about this from a guy from Legacy, okay? If you have a CEO or an owner that's going to be separated from a company that he owns, unless the company's got evidence of like what I would call theft and moral turpitude, it doesn't seem to make much sense to move the guy out without a severance package or a golden parachute that at the bottom of the contract says, we're going to give you all this money and you're going to promise not to sue us so we can all move on. Now, I happen to have met, I don't want to say I know him, but, you know, I know a side of Ben, okay? And I'm not sure, just as a man, looking at the way he got treated, knowing that he has a wife and kids, I don't know who treats a guy with wife and kids that badly, particularly when he helped build whatever organization he was being ejected out of. Also, regarding this topic that no one seems to be thinking about, what about all these people that work at Hit Network, Bitboy Crypto, whatever the name of the company is? I mean, there were a lot of people who worked there when I went to visit the operation in 2021. So there's probably even more people there now. Okay. So is it a good idea for crypto people to fight with each other? I went through a very, very, very minor version of this compared to what's happening with Ben. And I can tell you right now how it made me feel. And I'm sure he feels that way. But I'm going to say this. Regardless of what this guy has done, regardless of what happened, you take a guy like this who can raise the amount of money that he raised by just asking for help, and a guy with 45K subscribers right out of the gate doing this on a laptop out of his house, possibly with sponsors. They may have tried to kill this guy, and they may have created a monster. They may have just made Ben Armstrong bigger. And if Ben Armstrong gets his channel back, forget it. Either way, they've handed him like the greatest ongoing story ever. You know, all the parties involved, I actually know guys on kind of both sides of this. It's always good for crypto people to stick together. At the end of the next cycle, all those guys are going to be asking themselves, why were we fighting with each other? It's very important. Now, let's turn to all the fun news about crypto. Bitcoin short-term holders panic amid nearly 100% unrealized loss. So this is implying that a lot of people have bought crypto, according to Glassnode. Okay, I have not looked at the chart. I really only need the headline. BlackRock, ARK, Cathie Wood, everybody is waiting below this market for all the short-term holders to panic because of what's going on in stocks and bonds. Yes, the situation in bonds and interest rates is way worse than I thought. Way worse. I will explain that. But they're waiting for your Bitcoin. Now, how bad is this going to be? Okay, well, maybe pretty bad. But whoever scoops up everybody's Bitcoin at the lows will have the last laugh. Now, let's kind of get into how much trouble we're actually in as a country. Okay, so oil's headed for $100. I think we've got the worst of all worlds. We've got a Fed who doesn't know what to do. We have a job market that's still functioning tight. And the Russians and the Saudis are squeezing oil higher. The Russians have shut off diesel. And the United States Strategic Petroleum Reserve is empty, thanks to some mysterious policy by the deep state that's no longer deep. They're operating in plain sight. They want electric vehicles, so they're just going to let the price of energy go to, I don't know, $200. What happens if we have to fill up the Strategic Petroleum Reserve? Who is running America? Not the Americans. McCarthy cancels House vote as GOP infighting risks shutdown. Hey, people, we're already shut down. We're already shut down. Closed. Done. Right? President of the United States is not well. Several senators are not well. Who's running the country? Nobody. And now, if you have the Federal Reserve going, oh, I don't know. There's nobody home. There's no reason to have confidence right now in U.S. assets. And I'll go back to a Dalio quote that was from yesterday, reminding everybody that when Dalio has come out with news articles 3 to 6 days before every big debacle the last 2 years. And I'll show you. In the Twitter space, I said, unfortunately, if there was a way to get short the Republic, like this, YouTube influencer with the dark beard, not Ben, we're talking about this other guy who was like accused of doing something, and then governments were trying to demonetize him on social media immediately. The deep state is not deep, and there's nobody home at the top. Nobody. Look at this. Republicans embrace ballot harvesting for 2024. Folks, it's not how many votes you get, it's how many ballots you can collect. Like paper ones in the digital age. Artificial intelligence changes the world, yet we vote by paper. And the Republicans are like, oh, wow, the other side's cheating. Well, we better hurry up and cheat too. This gives me a lot of confidence in the Republic, people. U.S. Congress split over Ukraine funding. You know, I knew a military nurse who served in Afghanistan. She told me once that the problem with the United States is that they give up too early. They just give up too early. They lose their resolve. So, you know, if we were going to fight the Russians, we should have actually fought the Russians. Instead of sending billions of dollars over to a country, we're not sure what they did with the money. They're not beating the Russians, that's for sure. And a lot of people have died. I mean, it's literally, it's like the Vietnam War meets World War I. Two wars that nobody ever thought they would see again, we've seen again. And the dollar index is at 105. Wow, really, guys? Okay, well, I know things are bad in China, but why are we buying the currency? Like, you know, Bitcoin's like, oh, God, the bond market. You know, Bitcoin should have been down 10% today. Hopefully, Bitcoin's not down 10% tomorrow, but Bitcoin is going to get held up because the dollar is going to give up the ghost. Like, loss of confidence is coming. This is Satoshi's vision. Sounds bad, but I don't know. Maybe it's not that bad for crypto people. Okay, so Federal Reserve hardens commitment to higher for longer. Actually, the Fed's been saying this all along. The fantasy has been on the part of the stock market and in the bond futures market, where they pretend they're going to see rate cuts next year. And Powell basically told you that was never going to happen. And today he just put his foot down. And he had to do it by saying, yeah, we really don't know what we're going to do with this, but we know we're not cutting rates. So uncertainty is like drinking Drano for markets. Seriously, like we're going to hike rates. The market's like, okay. We're going to cut rates. Okay. We're not going to do anything. Okay. We don't know what to do. What? You don't know what to do? I mean, you can make fun of Powell all you want, but I mean, right now, in terms of government officials, Powell, you know, wasn't the one who decided to print money for 12 years. Yeah, he did the COVID print job, but Powell's probably our most competent leader as of now in the current administration. And if he doesn't know what to do, it's time for crypto. So Federal Reserve signals fresh rate rise this year and fewer cuts in 2024. Right. They can't hike. They can't cut. They can't do anything. They have to just let the bond market take care of it. We're going to go into the implications of that later. More fun stuff. U.S. supply chain shortages impacting healthcare. Current administration eyes banning medical debt from credit reports. Okay. I mean, that would be helpful in some cases, but are you buying votes? Are we trying to help people or are we trying to buy votes? What are we doing? Nearly half of young adults live at home and they like it. The share of people in the U.S. who are living with their family is at the same level as in the 1940s, as in like post-war and depression. Now, somebody from the government fights back with an anti-surveillance bill, right, preventing or trying to prevent the Federal Reserve from having a central bank digital currency. I prefer this solution where Elon wants to add a payment feature to Twitter. Now, one reason why I know it's not the end of the world, but the market is going to crash, is that Goldman Sachs raises $15 billion to buy stakes in private equity funds. In other words, Goldman knows everything's about to get marked down to zero, and it wants to go shopping for intellectual property. It wants to go shopping for intellectual property. Hedge funds increasing their bets that oil rises above 100. That is actually one of the things that's hurting Bitcoin at this moment. Okay. Cisco pays $28 billion for a cybersecurity group, Splunk. Sometimes, and I'm not sure what the valuation of Splunk is, although I know it's an amazing company. One of the things that you normally get at the top is some sort of emotional merger. I've seen these, right? Like Cisco's afraid it's missed the boat on AI and they're going to acquire their way into the game. Very, very twisted and interesting thing. Tether resumes USDT loans, insists it maintains excess reserves. Hey, does anybody remember the day when Tether blowing up was the biggest fear? Now we got to fear that like the Treasury and the government's going to blow up, which frankly goes back to a theme I've had all year, that if there's a solvency problem with the bank, it could be the Treasury, the Fed, the central bank, the government itself. Okay. Now, that all sounds terrible. But Rudy, what's up? That all sounds terrible. Lawn Shark, Aiken. Okay. Aiken says, respectfully disagree. We are at peak deep state. If anybody needs a reminder, check the back of your dollar bill who runs it. Okay, I agree. The deep state has never been more active. They are out of control. My point is that they're not deep, meaning they're not operating in the shadows anymore. They're operating in plain sight and in very obvious ways. Who are these people? And you know what? Who cares? Who knows and who cares? You want to know what the answer to everything I just told you is? Is Bitcoin. It is. It's Bitcoin, it's Ethereum, it's decentralized AI. Because all the things that everyone's in love with, like, gee, I got to have a junk bond. There's a shortage. I heard that crap 2 months ago. Oh, don't worry. Everything's fine in commercial real estate. Don't worry. Everything's fine. Right. Everything's just fine. No, it's not fine. Satoshi's vision was kicked off by a central bank chairman. Let's go to the charts. I'll explain it. Then we're going to do some live TA as much as I can do. For all my friends who tuned in late, including Eagle King. Okay. Ray Dalio says he doesn't want to hold cash. He doesn't want to hold bonds. Cash is good. This is from like 3 or 4 days before Powell dropped, I don't know, and bonds just collapsed. These hedge funds are short. They're short bonds. They're short stocks. So are commodity trading advisors. What are commodity trading advisors? Well, they're just old-fashioned momentum players, right? If it's going down, they're shorted. If it goes down, they'll short more. Whatever's moving, they're on it. And if they smell blood, they're just going to pile on. They're just going to keep shorting it. In other words, right now, I think in legacy, we're at this stage in bear markets, which loyal fans will know, we'll call the fear of being short phase. People don't want to be short. They're like, well, it's down too much. I can't short it now. Yeah, okay. Well, you better think again, because the next rally may not be for a while, especially if this is a 1929 style event where you could have 30 days of this, keeping in mind that there is going to be a government shutdown in 10 days. I've been talking about this, right? It sort of dawned on everybody today, but they just got out of denial about rate cuts next year. They just got out of denial about the fact that the only way to have an end to inflation is to have a 9 or 10% 30-year mortgage rate. The only way to end this is to have legacy act in such a way where there is no other choice but Bitcoin. Okay, let's talk about Bitcoin at a tactical level. So if you're watching this 3 or 4 days from now, maybe you'll have a laugh, maybe not. I think the stops are underneath 25,800, and they're going to go hunting for the stops. They're going to try to scare all these short-term holders out of their Bitcoin. by either taking it below 25.8 or by taking it down with some huge wick. I think that's very possible. All right. Now, to be honest, this chart is going to get some publicity. The red line is the 50-day moving average. The white line is the 200-day moving average in Bitcoin. The two moving averages crossed or touched each other. As is always the case, it's called the death cross. So, of course, every time you talk about death, you get a rally. Every time you talk about golden, you get a decline. That said, these moving averages crossing over each other could create a somber decline if you get a sell everything move. Personally, I think crypto does like a one-day. Crypto just sits and watches legacy, and then it all happens at once and comes back. I think crypto survives. Now, why would there be a washout? Let's take a look at just some recent history. So this is total crypto market cap. This is the 50-day moving average. Obviously, you run up to the 50-day moving average, you fail, and then you could have this, right? This was, I believe, in August, that was, Gensler. So you could have this whole, oh my God, trade in total crypto market cap and just have it all get done in one day. Total 3. Now, I'm kind of taking this a little bit more seriously because of what's going on in bonds. Like, I'm taking it all seriously, but I mean, if you have altcoins, right? All right. Megan is here. Welcome. Mark, what's up? Okay. Kim is saying the derivatives bubble could burst. Yes, it could. You are going to have a blow up in legacy, folks. I mean, there's no question about that. The only question is not if you should buy crypto, it's when. Now, if you have total 3, this is total altcoin market cap with its third kind of clear failure at the 50-day moving average. People, you got to watch out in really speculative assets. I'm just not playing around. This is the one thing I've been consistent about. I don't know what they're going to do to Bitcoin. I'm obviously cheering for crypto. I know with this bond market price action that we have today, actually altcoins should have been down a lot more. I'm actually kind of impressed, but I'm not kidding myself. Like if you got S coins, like if you got Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe you got XRP, okay, maybe you can hold on to that stuff because there's like a long-term thesis. But if it doesn't have a long-term thesis, you better be careful. And again, I can still see Bitcoin going all the way down. And when this legacy heave really gets going, people are going to come in and take cash and buy Bitcoin. They are, right? Like the day oil hits 100 or the day oil goes above 95, because oil statistically can put the brakes on Bitcoin. Yeah, that's when you start buying. Okay, so let's talk about ETH. On a 4-hour chart, a failed rally in Ethereum would be bad. You do have support at 1580. So hard to get bearish Ethereum at these levels. So hard. But if ETH is below 1580, you have a problem. This is ETH on a 90-minute chart. Again, if you're looking at this 3 days from now, and you're like, wow, there was a 13 bottom at 1580. It better create some kind of rally or some kind of stability, because it goes back to this whole beware the failed rally thing. I mean, I'm a big believer in crypto. And when you see these legacy charts, you're going to be a big believer in crypto too, to the point where if your portfolio allows it, you almost want to see this gigantic flash crash in crypto. But ETH has got to rally, right? Otherwise, the flash event risk is there. Not going to lie. This is TLT. This is an ETF in the stock market that tracks long-term bonds. This is a weekly chart. So this is a 9 bottom. So with DeMark, you have the first part of a trend is 1 through 9. Counts a certain set of conditions, like the low is lower than the low 4 days ago. So rather than having you think in C++ programming language, the quant system does it for you. And this is textbook, right? The first part of the trend is called setup. You go 1 through 9. Then you rally. You have a counter trend move. And if it's a failed rally, which it was 4 weeks ago, Then you have countdown, which is 1 through 13. So right now, bonds are on a 2. That means they could have potentially 12 more weeks or 11 more weeks of downside price action before it's theoretically over. You look at ZB, this is long bond futures, so known as Thanos. So just to be clear, to keep the economics lesson poignant but brief, long-term bonds determine long-term interest rates, like the 30-year mortgage rate. If ZB goes down, nothing survives. ZB, long-term bonds, are a function, they're sort of a function of what the Fed does, but really they're a function of credibility of the U.S. government, specifically their ability to maintain the integrity of the government and fight inflation, which Jerome Powell has just basically said, sorry, I tried. Now ZB is like, forget it. And there are all these massive leverage shorts out there. This could be the 1929 crash. This could be it in bonds. That could happen in stocks too, because that was 87. 87 was a bond crash followed by a stock crash. I mean, it was exactly the same thing. Greenspan, who had just taken over for Volcker, came out and really talked tough on inflation, trying to look as tough as Volcker. Next thing you knew, bonds crashed. Next thing you knew, stocks followed. And everything was fine in stocks right up until Labor Day. And all of a sudden, like 1 month later, the whole world was panicking. What's changed? Well, the facts haven't changed. What's changed is that people are admitting the problem, which I believe is going to happen with the dollar, which is why I'm still keeping the faith in crypto. But this is a disaster. This is the 1929 crash. This is it. Bonds. People think ZB can't go from 118 to 106. I mean, I can't. That's like a 9% 30-year mortgage rate. That is the end. Sorry. I mean, you know, our government did it to itself. Now, let's try to look at this in perhaps a more practical way, right? Does it make any sense for the yield on a long-term government bond to be below the yield on a short-term government bond? Really, think about it. Like, it's called an inverted yield curve. Won't bother with the whole story, but I mean, do you realize you can get, you know, 5.2% on a treasury bill, and you get 5.05 on a 10-year loan to the government? Why are they doing that? Now, they do that when they think a recession and rate cuts are coming, but rate cuts aren't coming. So if Fed funds or interest rates are around 5%, well, the 10-year has to trade at 5%. And the 30-year should trade above the 10-year note yield. So if the 10-year is going to 5%, so's the long bond. No way stocks survive this. We'll get into it in a second. So here's QQQ. I would like to welcome everybody to the Disney fantasy tour of equities, where you're safe from China. Everything is okay. Nothing can go wrong. Don't worry. I'll hide here. And even to a small degree, I might have been buying into some of that you're safer in equities. Yeah, you're safer in equities than you are in bonds. But let me ask this. How much money has been borrowed against stocks? Because they're going up forever, right? So this is QQQ. This is tech stocks. This is where everyone's hiding because they're afraid of something blowing up in the banks or retailers, which in some cases like Nike, there's no point in even talking about them. They're so destroyed. But this is the 9 bottom, and the failed rally was earlier today, and then Qs just turned around and puked. This is a 4-hour chart. I mean, you could have Qs down 10% by Tuesday. Easily. And you got a thin holiday market coming up with the Jewish holiday in the United States. Tesla, 4-hour chart, 13 top. Tesla's down huge. Oh my God, I can't short it. Really? You just got the topping signal today. How much money has been borrowed against Tesla? I don't even want to hear about the technology arguments behind any of these stocks. How much money has been borrowed against these companies, the stocks, and how much short squeezes have you had? Look at this. Blackstone, I'm sorry. So they basically own all the commercial real estate on the planet. I don't know. I think this stock was in like the low 80s at one point, and they managed to squeeze it all the way up to 114. You'll find out that insiders or big players were selling it to retail all the way up. The 13 top was a week ago, and today you just really kind of took out the candle where you had the 13 top. They just confirmed the 13 top today. And these guys own all the commercial real estate in the world with bonds getting vaporized. Fascinating little short squeeze they had going on here. Like if there are no shorts left, who is the buyer of the market? When longs sell, they have to sell to somebody. A lot of times it's short sellers. They get short, market goes down a little bit, they cover. Well, thanks to this rally, where are the shorts? There aren't any. They're destroyed. They're not there. So this brings up the next point about 1929, which is a liquidity crisis, right? Which is one of the reasons why you could have a wick down in crypto, right? You want to just say, hey, where's the buyers? Oh, there are no buyers because all the short-term holders are selling Bitcoin because everyone's panicking, rightly so, in Blackstone, Tesla, okay, IYR, malls, commercial real estate, right? Nothing can possibly happen. Breaks a hidden pivot point at 81.52. How fast do you think this thing can go to 72 on a percentage basis? Like this thing has done nothing because everything is fine. It's fine, right? Like you had Silicon Valley Bank, but don't worry, it's okay. No, it's not. No, it's not. There's no bid. None. Like everyone's used to no bid in crypto. You are going to see, write this down. You are going to see a bidless legacy day, days, or even a week. Because that's what happened in 29. You had no bid. You had no liquidity for days. You read the 1929 book. I mean, they had clerks matching up trades because, again, no computers, right? You had the humans that cleared the trades between buyers and sellers. You had them collapsing. You had them living in hotels in downtown New York. They couldn't process the trades. XLF, banks, big ones, breaking out the 50-week moving average. Notice, because this happened in the Dow with the 50-day moving average. Don't let me forget to try to bring that chart up. These are called quiet breakdowns, where the market just sort of slips, cracks the average, and then the next thing you know, something's wrong with one of the big banks. As Kim said, you've got derivatives exposure. In other words, this candle could wind up looking like this candle this week or next week. Every time XLF has done a puke below the 50-week moving average, yes, it's come back, but these pukes have been epic. It's going to happen. Like, you cannot have legacy assets going down, things like treasury bonds, commercial real estate, falling in 2-3% increments every day, which is like crypto going down 10%. You cannot have that kind of price action without somebody blowing up. Speaking of somebody, how about Nvidia? You have a 13 and a 9 bottom on the Nvidia 4-hour chart, which, if the entire history of Nvidia is correct, should create a rally because you've been paid to buy every dip and every DeMark bottoming signal. And if Nvidia does not rally off those signals, then the stock market is going down. Nvidia on a monthly chart. Again, how much money has been borrowed against Nvidia? So in late 2021, you have a DeMark 9 top, right? So these things can act as like, pauses in trends or end of trends. 9 top, 2021. Tightening cycle, 9 bottom, Nvidia goes to 100. 9 bottom. AI cycle, Nvidia going up for the rest of our natural lives. Nvidia to 500. Oh, wait, 9 top, boom. How much money has been borrowed against this stock? That's all. It doesn't have nothing. I don't care about the AI. I don't care about anything. Right now, it's about leverage and liquidity. And the market's just going to go and look to clean out all the leverage. Because here's a funny thing about bonds and Bitcoin. Let me go back to this chart for just 1 second. Let's say you did see the 10-year note at 5%, or you actually did see ZB at 106, which, again, that would be an absolutely epic crash. Okay, you would have a monster V bottom at that point because a lot of the shorts in ZB in bonds are levered. So if you have levered shorts piling in, trying to kill something, it could hit 106 and turn right around and go back up because perhaps maybe the real debacle is in stocks. You'd be squeezing leveraged shorts and bonds on the way up and crushing levered longs in stocks on the way down. That's not now. That's later in October. The reason I bring up the possibility of a huge crash in bonds followed by a rebound is that would be really good for Bitcoin. Once the U.S. government's credibility has been sort of marked down in financial assets, that opens up the possibility for Bitcoin. Now, let's talk about the dollar. So the prevailing rationalization prior to this week is that the dollar is going up because when legacy assets melt down or there's a problem in China, the standard operating procedure is to just buy the dollar and stick it in a bank or in a treasury bill. Well, what treasury bill are you going to stick it into if they're going to miss an interest payment because of a shutdown? What are you going to stick your dollar? Where are you putting it? Into a bank with derivatives exposure? So, okay, yeah, I get it. Overseas, the dollar may be better, but the fact that the dollar was lower today after you had this like doji candlestick, which maybe or maybe not, you can see. You had this like stalemate candlestick, like they brought it all the way back and then they just kind of ran into a wall. Yeah, people. And these divergences, like you have continued new highs in price, but the RSIs are not making new high. This is why I'm not that negative Bitcoin. I mean, yes, there could be a sell everything trade, but that could also include the dollar. This is what like nobody, even me, like I have never really seen sell bonds, sell stocks, sell dollars on like a protracted basis. I've never seen all three of them just get crushed. Now, admittedly, the dollar didn't get crushed, but this thing can become systemic very quickly, especially since the political thing is a disaster. I'm on the GLDN Twitter Spaces talking about the United States being ungovernable. This trade is happening now. So even though I'm talking about stuff that's legacy, I'm really talking about crypto. Because let me tell you something, folks. If it really is sell bonds, sell stocks, and the dollar index tanks, Bitcoin may never go down. Or it may go down, if stocks go down 15%, that's a mega crash. But if Bitcoin went down 10%, who cares? I mean, yeah, your P&L cares, but who cares? I mean, normally when stocks and bonds go down 15 or 20%, Bitcoin goes down 60%. If the dollar goes down, that's not happening. It's not. Okay, as a reminder, September 30th, they're doing the government shutdown. And you know what? I know this is pretty radical, but I got to read this. This comes from a former executive. You can like him or not like him. I don't know. He comes up with ideas. I don't know how he's great at coming up with ideas. I'm not sure about implementation, but I think this is a very important thing to read about the government shutdown because the people who could create the shutdown believe what I'm about to read. A very important deadline is approaching at the end of the month. Republicans in Congress can and must defund all aspect of the current administration's weaponized government that refuses to do anything about the border and treats half the country as enemies of the state. This is also the last chance to defund these political prosecutions against certain people and others. They failed, as in the Republicans on the debt limit, but they must not fail now. Use the power of the purse and defend the country. That's pretty, whoever wrote that, that's pretty good. I gotta be honest, right? Now, I'm all for defending the country because, as I've said over and over again, the primary job of government is to protect the people. But I think it's time we protected ourselves. And the only way to do that is with Bitcoin and Ethereum. Because there's no way legacy doesn't blow up. There's no way this is not the biggest crash in the history of capital markets. The risk-free rate in a finance textbook is not risk-free anymore. It's not. I mean, this statement might as well be titled, "The risk-free rate, as in the rate on treasury bonds and treasury notes, is not risk-free anymore." The deep state is running the United States in plain sight. And that is the market update. All right, let's see what we got going on in the comments. Okay. Somebody stop printing money. What do I think about what's going on the line between Texas and Mexico? Okay, well, let's see. I believe Social Security recipients get $1,400. And I believe anybody that enters the United States gets $2,200 a month. I'm not sure how they pulled that off, but I mean, if you lived in a country that's basically a failed state, and I don't know, the place where they have a lot of money and a lot of opportunity is offering you a huge cushion to come, why wouldn't you come? I mean, the Texas Attorney General sued the United States federal government 48 times. And somehow, even though he was reelected in a Republican landslide, a Republican attorney general got impeached in Texas for trying to fight this border problem. I mean, it's almost like we've been invaded from the inside. It doesn't matter what your politics are. You could go up to somebody from the left and go, "Hey, how's it going?" You could go up to somebody from the right and go, "Hey, how's it going?" But you know what? What I know that other people don't know, because I'm over the age of 35, is that you've never seen anything like this. You've never seen this level of not only dysfunction, but like the brazenness of it all. Like nobody thinks there are any consequences to their behavior. That's why this other guy's saying, defend the country. No one is defending the country. It's like they're tearing it down, which, you know, from a point of view of crypto people, you know, is okay. Great filibuster. What's up? Right? Steve Mesa's right on time. What's up? Okay. Rudy Roo is calling it. I love this, man. I love this guy. Black Swan tomorrow. Market. The crash of 1929 started on September 22nd. Hence, we are doing the late night live stream. September 22nd. I actually saw somebody here from Amsterdam. Somebody here from Amsterdam late at night catching the stream. Okay. Let's go to live TA before we head out for the evening. I got to get Eagle King out of here at a decent hour. Okay. So here's ETH on a 90-minute chart. Oh, there's a 13 bottom and there's a bid. Oh, really, really, really want crypto. Okay. To hang in there. This could be helping. CZ punches back. Getting the SEC to dismiss the lawsuit. Wouldn't it be funny if the judge threw that out of court? You know, nobody's in the mood for Gensler anymore. So, you know, again, if this 13 bottom in ETH creates a bid, I swear I would be so happy. Let's check the 90-minute chart. Okay. They may be making fun of me in a week if this all goes to zero. Bitcoin really has got to get itself back above like 26.6. I'm so tired of talking about all of these little levels and these ranges, right? Now, here's the good news in Bitcoin. This was a 9 top. So if this was a range, you know, Bitcoin will go back down. So you had a 9 bottom, You eventually had a rally. You have a 9 top. It goes back down. Boring, right? But normally after a 9 top, you get a counter trend move, which you did. They wiped out like 2 or 3 days of upside. My God, if this holds, I want to end this stream with this chart and one simple idea. What would happen if legacy went down 25% and crypto actually rallied? Even if crypto corrected after the fact, is anybody expecting legacy to go down and crypto to go up? Is anybody talking about that? Now, maybe no one's talking about that because it's stupid. All right. I caught some people like unfollowing me on YouTube, just a couple, because I was like, it's going to be the biggest crash ever, which it is, but it could be sunshine and roses for Bitcoin. Everybody in crypto knows that you can wake up one day and lose 40% of your money. I don't think you need to watch a live stream at 9:30 at night Eastern time to have someone tell you that. Now, you do need to manage risk because that can happen. But the real thing you would watch TV late at night to at least think about is the knowledge that something is terribly wrong in legacy, that the biggest crash ever is at hand, and that crypto may actually hold or at least come back very quickly. So there's something wrong with America, and that's great for Bitcoin. Because one of the things that is good about America and that's good about free markets, once you get the government out of the way, is that capital markets make adjustments. And when capital market makes the appropriate adjustments, government policymakers can make better decisions, and so can people in the private sector. I'm not putting sugar on a crash, but sometimes you need to have a little revolution. And believe me, folks, it's time for a revolution in equities. Okay, Rudy, being a class act that he is, I think he wants some information about Jasmy, which actually tried to pump yesterday. Decentralized AI, when are we going to get it? When are we going to get it? AI is bad if it's not decentralized. I don't know why people don't understand this. I don't get it. I absolutely don't get it. Okay. Render. Okay. Well, it didn't go down. So maybe this is hopeful, but you have to be careful when you get, these red wicks down, but it comes back. So people want to buy the dip, but people have to be willing to pay higher prices. So just remember that part of it. Just remember that part of it. Rudy wants me to read the prayer of the sheepdog. Right. I know. I'm not sharing screen because I'm looking for. Prayer of the sheepdog. I don't know. I'm just going to click on a random link and see if it gives it to me. Actually, you know what? Let me do something different. Here's what the prayer of the sheepdog is about. I could read it to you. You could Google it. I've read it before crashes. The prayer of the sheepdog is about somebody who wants to protect the sheep from the wolves. And one of the laments, one of the reasons why the sheepdog is praying to the God of his understanding is because, there are so many wolves and yet there are so many sheep as well. And he prays for bravery and courage to be able to stand between the large number of wolves and the large number of sheep. So I'm happy to be your sheepdog. I'm happy to fight the wolves. But perhaps the message of this evening is don't be a sheep. Try not to sell your Bitcoin to BlackRock and make the appropriate 401k adjustments. I texted somebody I love today about that. I didn't get any response. Maybe I need to read that person the prayer of the sheepdog. That's the market update, people. Keep your helmets on. We'll see you next time.